We all fight battles no one sees. Some happen out there, in boardrooms, on streets, in the noise of ambition. But the real war, the one that decides who we become, is fought in silence. It begins in your mind, between impulse and intention, between what you want now and what you want most. Self-control. It's not about denial, it's about direction. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering its energy. Because every decision, every delay, every moment you choose to hold back, you're not losing something, you're building something. Discipline, clarity, power. And yet most people never win this war. Not because they're weak, but because they never learn how to fight it. They fight the world, not their urges. They chase control outside while losing it inside. But the truth is, the mind that's untrained will always betray you. The emotions you refuse to master will always master you. This audiobook is not about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about reclaiming your mind, one thought, one decision, one moment at a time. Because when you control yourself, you control your world. So let's begin, not with motivation, but with understanding. Not with hype, but with honesty. This is where the war within begins. Chapter 1. The first battle, you versus you. Every day, before you even open your eyes, a battle has already begun. It's not outside your door. It's inside your mind. The moment your alarm rings, the war starts. Between comfort and conviction, between the voice that whispers 5 more minutes, and the one that says, get up, it's time. That tiny moment, that's where self-control is born. Most people think self-control is about saying no to temptation, but it's not. It's about saying yes to something greater, because every act of discipline is an act of belief. Belief that your future deserves more respect than your mood. You can't win the day if you lose the morning. And you can't master your world if you can't master your impulses. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself change only to fall back into the same habits? Not because you didn't want it badly enough, but because you never learned to control the gap, the space between thought and action. That's where your power lives. Self-control isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in micro moments. The pause before a reaction, the silence before a response, the breath before the choice. And every time you win that moment, you grow stronger. The first battle of every day isn't about willpower, it's about awareness. Because you can't control what you don't recognize. The trigger, the impulse, the craving, they're not the enemy. They're the signal. They're your mind's way of saying, this is where you need strength. The greatest victories are invisible. They don't happen in the spotlight. They happen when no one's watching. When you walk away instead of reacting. When you stay focused instead of scrolling. When you choose effort over ease, that's where greatness is born, in quiet decisions that no one applauds, but that change everything. So when the world feels heavy, and your mind pulls you toward comfort, pause. Remember this, every time you master the moment, you're not just controlling your actions, you're reshaping your identity. And one day, you'll wake up and realize the voice that once whispered quit, now says, keep going. That's when you'll know. The war within has started to turn in your favor. Chapter 2. The Anatomy of Temptation. Temptation doesn't always arrive wearing red. Sometimes it comes dressed as comfort, as relief, as that voice that says, you deserve this. It rarely feels like danger in the beginning. It feels like safety, like permission. That's how temptation works. It doesn't fight you head on. It whispers. It seduces you into thinking you're in control, even when you're slipping away. To master self-control, you have to understand temptation for what it truly is. Not a monster waiting to destroy you, but a mirror revealing what still controls you. Every temptation tells a story. It tells you where your discipline is weakest. It tells you what your mind still craves when the heart is tired. It tells you what comfort you're still addicted to. When progress starts to feel like pain. The truth is, temptation doesn't attack randomly. It studies you, it learns your patterns. It knows when you're lonely, when you're stressed, when you're restless. It waits for the quiet hours when your guard is down, because that's when the war is easiest to win. Not when you're at your strongest, but when you're too tired to fight. The battle against temptation isn't won by resistance alone. It's won by understanding. You can't fight what you don't recognize. You can't overcome what you refuse to face. The human mind has a tendency to justify. We say, just this once. We promise, I'll start again tomorrow. We convince ourselves that control can wait, but control that's delayed is control that's lost. Temptation is not the enemy, it's the test. It's the doorway through which your character walks or collapses. Every time you give in to temptation, it doesn't just steal your focus. It rewires your brain, it trains you to seek the easier path. It feeds the belief that peace is found in comfort, when in truth, peace is found in mastery. When you understand temptation, you begin to see its rhythm. It always begins the same way: a thought, a spark, a flash of desire. It lingers, it whispers, it promises a shortcut. Then it grows. It becomes emotion. Emotion becomes justification, and justification becomes action. But between those stages lies a sacred space. A pause, a heartbeat, that's the moment of choice. If you can pause, breathe, and bring awareness into that space, you can rewrite everything. Because temptation loses its power the moment it's observed. When you see it clearly, without shame, without panic, it shrinks. You realize it's not stronger than you, it's just louder. The most disciplined people in the world aren't those who never feel temptation. They're the ones who've learned to recognize it and redirect it. They don't fight the fire, they master it. They turn craving into clarity, impulse into intention, energy into purpose. Because they understand this, what you resist persists. But what you understand loses its grip. When you're tempted, don't run from it. Study it. Ask yourself, what am I really seeking here? Comfort, validation, escape, relief? The answer will always reveal a truth about you. And that truth is the foundation of control, because you can't master your emotions until you understand their roots. You can't overcome temptation until you trace it to the need it's pretending to satisfy. Most of the time, temptation isn't about desire, it's about avoidance. Avoiding discomfort, avoiding fear, avoiding silence. When your life lacks direction, temptation fills the void. When you don't know what you're working toward, everything starts to look like a reward. That's why purpose is the greatest defense against temptation. When your heart knows what it wants, the noise loses its charm. You see, temptation doesn't disappear. It evolves. As you grow, it changes shape. But the principle stays the same. You can't eliminate temptation. You can only outgrow it. You outgrow it by raising your standards, by giving your life meaning so deep that cheap thrills lose their shine, by aligning your actions with your values, not your emotions. And every time you do, you build an invisible armor, not the kind that blocks you from life, but the kind that lets you walk through storms untouched. That's the real art of self-control, not resisting temptation, but transcending it. It's not about saying no, it's about saying yes to something bigger. Yes to growth. Yes to discipline. Yes to becoming the person you promised yourself you'd be. So the next time temptation comes, don't fear it. Face it, feel it, and remember, it's not here to break you, it's here to build you, because every temptation overcome is a victory you can't see, but one that changes who you are forever. The anatomy of temptation is simple. It starts as a whisper, but ends as a choice. And the more you understand that choice, the more you begin to see that power was never out there. It was always within. Chapter 3: The War Within, where self-control is won or lost. The hardest battles you'll ever fight are the ones no one sees. Not the public struggles, not the external challenges, but the quiet wars, the ones between who you are and who you're trying to become. That's where self-control lives, in those invisible moments when no one is watching and your mind begins to negotiate with your desire. Self-control is not built in grand gestures, it's forged in silence. It's shaped in the moments you choose to stay focused when distraction calls your name. It's born when you delay comfort, when you resist the easy escape and choose the harder truth. People think discipline means living without pleasure. They're wrong. It means choosing a greater pleasure over a lesser one. It means saying no, not because you don't want something, but because you want something more. Every craving has a voice. It tells you that you're tired, that you've done enough, that you deserve to rest, to quit, to give in. But that voice isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. It shows you the parts of yourself that still need mastery. The person who wins in life isn't the one who never feels temptation, it's the one who learns to recognize it, to pause, to breathe, and then choose what aligns with their highest self, not their easiest self. Every moment of hesitation is a battlefield, a small one, but powerful, because the direction of your life is decided not by your dreams, but by what you do in those tiny seconds of decision. When you learn to control yourself, truly control yourself, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to mediocrity. Because mediocrity feeds on impulse. It survives on your lack of awareness, on your surrender to momentary feelings. If you want to win the war within, you must learn the rhythm of your own resistance. Understand when you're weakest. Know the hour your mind starts to crave distraction. Recognize what triggers the urge to abandon your plans. Because awareness is the foundation of control, you cannot master what you refuse to see. Every time you face temptation, you have two choices: feed it or face it. Feeding it feels better in the moment. Facing it builds power for a lifetime. The strongest people aren't the ones who've killed their impulses. They're the ones who've trained them. They've learned to turn the same energy that drives distraction into fuel for direction. That's the art of mastery, to use your desire, not be used by it. The truth is, most people lose to themselves long before they face the world. They lose when they pick comfort over commitment, when they settle for average because it's easier than excellence, when they let emotions decide what effort they give. But the few, the rare few who rise above, they live by a different law: discipline before desire. They understand that self-control isn't a restriction. It's liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of your impulses. It frees you from being dragged by moods and cravings. It lets you act with purpose rather than react with emotion. Imagine your life as a car speeding down a road. Your desires are the gas. Your discipline is the steering wheel. Without discipline, you might go fast, but you'll crash. Without desire, you might stay safe, but you'll never move. Balance both, and you can go anywhere. To win the war within, you must stop living like your emotions are commands. Feelings are real, yes, but they're not final. Just because something feels right doesn't mean it leads you right. And just because something feels hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Emotions are weather. Discipline is climate. You can't control the weather, but you can build a shelter strong enough to endure it. That shelter is routine, structure, and self-awareness. Because when you have structure, you don't have to depend on motivation. You act because it's who you are, not because you feel like it. Every day, your inner world asks you one question: who's in control today? Your hunger or your habits? If you want power, you must train your habits to carry your highest intentions even when your emotions fail you. Because they will fail you, often. But if your habits are strong, if your discipline is engraved into your rhythm, you won't collapse when motivation fades. That's the secret of every great performer, every great leader, every person who stands out. They've built systems that protect them from their weaker selves. They've learned that success isn't about how you act when you're inspired. It's about how you act when you're tired, frustrated, and ready to quit. Self-control is a promise you make to your future self, and every day your present self gets the chance to keep it, or break it. You win this war one decision at a time, by noticing the moment you want to give in and choosing not to, by feeling the craving rise and letting it pass without bowing to it, by staying true to your direction even when the road feels endless. And slowly, quietly, something changes inside you. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust, that quiet, steady confidence, becomes your greatest source of peace. Because when you master yourself, the world stops controlling you. You stop being a prisoner of your feelings, your habits, your impulses. You become your own anchor, unshakable, steady, free. That's what winning the inner war really means. Not perfection, not suppression, but power, calm, deliberate, unstoppable power. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't beg for attention, the kind that simply acts. And when you reach that place, when your emotions no longer decide your direction, that's when you've truly learned the power of self-control. Chapter 4. The Psychology of Resistance. Why we break promises to ourselves. Every person has two versions of themselves, the one they show the world and the one they whisper to in the dark. The one who dreams, who plans, who promises change. And then, the one who breaks those promises. You felt it. That burning conviction at night when you swear tomorrow will be different. The voice that says, "This time I mean it." And then the slow erosion that happens the next day. One excuse at a time. The comfort that creeps back in. The quiet bargain that says, "I'll start again next week." We all do it. We all betray ourselves in small ways until those betrayals become normal. And that's where the psychology of resistance begins. Not in the external world, but in the quiet negotiations within your own mind. See, the mind is brilliant at survival, but terrible at long-term discipline. Its job isn't to make you great, it's to keep you safe, and safety often means staying the same. That's why every time you try to change, every time you stretch beyond comfort, your mind rebels. It tells you, why bother? It whispers, you've tried before and failed. It reminds you of every disappointment, every time you didn't follow through. Not to punish you, but to protect you from feeling that pain again. That's resistance. It's not laziness. It's fear disguised as logic. It's the part of your brain that thinks consistency will cost you more than comfort ever will. It's the invisible gravity that pulls you back to what's familiar, even when what's familiar is slowly destroying you. To understand self-control, you must understand this. Your mind resists not because it hates growth, but because it fears loss. Loss of ease, loss of certainty, loss of identity. Every time you try to become someone new, your old self feels threatened. And so it fights back, not with swords, but with stories. Stories like, I don't have time. I'm just not motivated today. I'll start when I feel ready. But readiness never comes, because resistance doesn't vanish. It adapts. It learns your patterns, your weaknesses, your timing. It knows when to whisper and when to scream. Most people live their entire lives negotiating with resistance instead of conquering it. They make deals with it. I'll just skip one day. I'll start over next month. I'll rest for a while, then I'll come back stronger. But every deal costs you a little more self-trust. And once you lose trust in yourself, discipline becomes almost impossible. The key to mastering resistance isn't fighting harder. It's understanding its language. Because resistance doesn't disappear with willpower, it disappears with awareness. You must learn to recognize it the moment it speaks, and call it by name. When you say, I don't feel like it, stop. Look closer. You'll realize what you actually mean is, I don't want to face the discomfort of growth. When you say, I don't have time, you often mean, I don't want to prioritize what matters because it forces me to give up what's easy. Every excuse you've ever made has a truth buried inside it, and that truth is usually fear. So how do you break this cycle? You make the decision to act, not because you feel ready, but because you respect the promise. You act through resistance, not around it. You learn to move even when your mind is screaming to stop. The more you practice this, the quieter that voice becomes. Not because it disappears, but because it learns that you no longer negotiate. And that's the shift. When your mind finally realizes that discipline is not a debate. Here's something powerful to remember. Every time you follow through on something you said you'd do, you teach your mind a new story. A story of reliability, of strength, of alignment. And over time, that story becomes your identity. You stop being someone who tries to be disciplined. You become someone who is disciplined. And that's the ultimate transformation. When self-control stops being something you chase and starts being something you are. But let's be honest, even then, resistance doesn't go away. It simply changes form. The higher you climb, the more subtle it becomes. It will no longer say, skip the gym. It'll say, you've earned a rest. It won't say, give up. It'll say, you've done enough. That's the danger of progress. Success breeds softer excuses. The more you achieve, the more resistance disguises itself as reason. And that's why awareness must grow alongside achievement. You must always be watching, always listening. Not with paranoia, but with presence, because resistance is not your enemy. It's your compass. It points exactly where your growth lies. Wherever resistance lives, there lies the next level of your power. It's not a wall to stop you. It's a signal saying, this is where you need to go. The pain of discipline will never match the pain of regret. The weight of consistency will never equal the weight of unfulfilled potential. So the next time you feel that pull, that whisper that says, not today, smile. Because that's not a sign you're weak. It's a sign you're growing. It means you're standing at the threshold of change. And every time you step through it, you claim another piece of yourself, another layer of strength, another level of peace. Self-control is the practice of honoring your future self, even when your present self disagrees. You win this war not by shouting louder, but by listening deeper. Not by resisting resistance, but by respecting what it teaches you and still moving forward. In the end, mastering self-control isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. It's about learning to recognize the patterns that have ruled you and choosing differently, again and again and again. That's how power is built. That's how integrity is formed. And that's how you stop breaking promises to yourself, not because you found more motivation, but because you finally understood your mind. And once you understand it, you no longer serve it. It serves you. Chapter 5. The Cost of Indiscipline, the Invisible Price You Pay. There's a silent currency that every human being trades in. Discipline. It's the currency of dreams, of growth, of becoming. And whether you realize it or not, every decision you make either invests in your future or mortgages it. The price of indiscipline isn't always obvious. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on your door one morning and tell you failed. No, it moves quietly. It's paid slowly through missed chances, wasted time, and faded potential. You don't notice it at first. Skipping one workout doesn't matter. Putting off one call, delaying one idea, it feels harmless. But those tiny moments, repeated enough, build a life. And that life begins to look nothing like the one you imagined. That's the real cost. Not what you lose instantly, but what you never get to experience at all. The opportunities that never came because you weren't ready. The relationships that fell apart because you didn't have the patience to communicate. The peace you never felt because you kept feeding chaos. Indiscipline is expensive, not in money, but in meaning. It's the invisible tax on your potential. And you pay it every day you choose what's easy over what's right. You see, every act of indiscipline is a withdrawal from your confidence account. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your self-trust declines. And once that trust is gone, your belief follows. You start doubting your ability to change, your ability to commit, your ability to follow through. That's the tragedy. Not that you can't be great, but that you stop believing you can be. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they waste energy fighting battles that discipline could have prevented. They fight fires of their own making. Regret, debt, health issues, broken focus. All consequences of indiscipline. Discipline is like building a dam. It controls the flow of your energy. Without it, everything leaks. Your focus leaks. Your time leaks. Your peace leaks. And soon you're drained. Not because life was too hard, but because you gave too much of yourself to what didn't matter. You start to live reactively, always responding, never creating, always fixing, never building, always chasing, never arriving. That's the slow erosion of potential. And the scariest part? It doesn't hurt enough to scare you into change, not right away. Indiscipline feels good in the moment and harmless afterward. It's only months or years later when you look back that you realize how much it cost. You see, pain is honest. Regret is cruel. Pain tells you what needs fixing. Regret tells you it's too late. Every undisciplined choice is a seed of regret waiting to grow, and once it blooms, it doesn't fade easily. But here's the truth that stings. No one escapes the price. You either pay for discipline now, or you pay for regret later. Both hurt, but only one moves you forward. The pain of discipline is temporary. It's sharp, but it builds you. The pain of regret is permanent. It lingers, echoing in your mind like a song you can't turn off. Every morning, life hands you two invoices, one for effort, one for avoidance, and you get to choose which one to pay. Effort costs you sweat, focus, and sacrifice. Avoidance costs you peace, pride, and time. When you look at people who seem to have it all, peace, success, respect, what you're seeing isn't luck. You're seeing receipts. They've paid their dues daily, in discipline, in patience, in doing the work even when no one watched. Meanwhile, the ones who envy them are often drowning in the debt of indiscipline. They've spent too long feeding short-term pleasure, and now long-term pain collects with interest. The cost of indiscipline is cumulative. You don't pay it once, you pay it forever. In the form of broken confidence, lost time, and the haunting thought of what could have been. But here's the mercy: you can stop the debt any time. Discipline is compound interest in reverse. It rewards every deposit you make, no matter how small. Every time you say no to distraction, every time you push through resistance, every time you keep your word, you build equity in yourself. And over time, that equity becomes unshakable confidence. Discipline pays dividends that no shortcut ever could. Clarity, self-respect, freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't depend on luck or timing or permission. Because discipline isn't just control, it's power. It's choosing to be the author of your own story instead of a character written by circumstance. So think about it. How many times have you bought comfort with the currency of your dreams? How many moments of peace have you traded for a few seconds of pleasure? How many times have you looked at your reflection and known you could have done more, but didn't? That's the invisible pain of indiscipline. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It follows you quietly, sitting in the back of your mind during every moment of stillness. It asks one question: what if I had tried harder? You can't buy back time, but you can buy back integrity, one disciplined act at a time. Start small, because indiscipline doesn't break overnight, and neither does discipline build overnight. You repair it through repetition, through keeping small promises until the big ones no longer scare you. Eventually, something shifts. The old chaos loses its appeal. The rush of comfort feels shallow, and the peace of control, the steady rhythm of progress, becomes addictive. That's when you realize you're no longer paying the cost of indiscipline. You're earning the rewards of mastery. And that's a trade worth making every single day. Chapter 6. The Science of Focus. Controlling attention in a distracted world. Focus. It's the rarest currency in the modern age. Rarer than time, rarer than money. Because everyone has time, at least in fragments. But focus. That's what we've lost. The world has never been louder. Every vibration, every notification, every little red dot screams for attention like a hungry child tugging at your sleeve. And the more we feed it, the more it wants. We've built a culture addicted to noise, one that confuses motion with progress and activity with achievement. But focus, real focus, is rebellion. It's an act of resistance against chaos. It's the art of saying, not everything deserves my mind. If you think about it, distraction isn't a modern invention, it's ancient. Even our ancestors were distracted by hunger, danger, the unknown. But today we face a new predator, one that hunts silently. Distraction no longer comes from survival, it comes from convenience, from endless choices, glowing screens, and invisible algorithms that whisper, just one more scroll. Every time you give in, your attention fractures, and with every fracture, your ability to go deep weakens. Focus isn't just mental, it's biological. Your brain has a limited supply of energy each day, and every time you switch tasks, you burn a little more of it. That's why multitasking feels productive but leaves you exhausted. Your brain isn't built to sprint in two directions at once. It's like trying to read two books by flipping one page from each. You move, but you don't understand. We live in a world that rewards being everywhere, yet true greatness has always belonged to those who know how to be somewhere fully. One task, one purpose, one heartbeat at a time. Think about it. Everything powerful in life is built through focus. A masterpiece isn't painted in fragments. A symphony isn't composed in interruptions. A life of meaning isn't built in between distractions. The most successful people you know, they don't have more hours. They have more control over their attention. They treat it like gold, not gravel. Because attention, once scattered, is nearly impossible to gather again. The human mind doesn't just lose focus. It loses direction, and when direction fades, so does identity. You see, what you focus on becomes your reality. Your attention is the sculptor of your world. Focus on problems, and your world fills with obstacles. Focus on possibilities, and suddenly opportunity appears. Focus on what's wrong, and you feel powerless. Focus on what can be improved, and you feel unstoppable. But the question is, how do you control focus in a world built to steal it? It starts with awareness. You can't fix what you don't notice. Most people don't even realize how much they're bleeding attention. A few seconds here, a few minutes there, until days disappear. We underestimate the cost of constant partial attention. Every moment you give away to distraction is a moment you never get back. Your mind is like a lens. When it's scattered, everything blurs. But when you align it, even the faintest light becomes powerful enough to burn through steel. And that's what focus does. It turns scattered energy into directed force. It turns potential into progress. But here's the paradox. To control focus, you must first master distraction. Because distraction isn't always bad, it's information. It tells you what your mind craves, what your heart avoids, and what your emotions are trying to escape from. Most distractions aren't random, they're reflections. When you can sit with them without running, they lose their power. Stillness is not the absence of noise, it's the decision to rise above it. Start with your environment. Your mind is a mirror of your surroundings. Cluttered space, cluttered mind. Tidy space, calm mind. It sounds simple, but simplicity in Santirati is often the doorway to mastery. Then, protect your time. Don't let everyone have access to you just because they can reach you. Silence your phone, close your tabs, and reclaim your peace. Because peace is not a luxury, it's the foundation of focus. And most importantly, guard your mornings. The first hour after you wake up sets the tone for the rest of the day. If you feed your mind noise, you'll chase noise. If you feed it clarity, you'll create clarity. Start your mornings like an architect, not a firefighter. Design your day before the world demands it from you. Understand this. Every focused moment is an investment in your future self, and every distracted one is a donation to someone else's agenda. The world runs on attention, and you're the resource. Every company, every app, every click is built to harvest it. The question is, will you trade your attention cheaply or invest it wisely? When you master focus, you become dangerous, not to others, but to mediocrity. You start to move differently. Your thoughts sharpen. Your energy flows with purpose. And soon, what once felt impossible starts bending in your direction. But here's something deeper. Focus is emotional, not just logical. You can't concentrate on something you don't care about. You can't pour your soul into something that doesn't ignite you. So if your focus fades easily, maybe it's not a discipline issue. Maybe it's a direction issue. Maybe you're chasing things that don't truly belong to you. Real focus comes when purpose meets emotion, when what you're doing connects to who you are. Then focus stops being effort. It becomes instinct. That's why some people can work for hours without breaking, while others struggle for minutes. It's not just self-control, it's alignment. They've found the rhythm between their mind and their mission. That's what creates flow. That invisible zone where time dissolves, distractions vanish, and only creation remains. Flow isn't magic, it's mastery, and mastery begins with focus. So the next time your phone buzzes, or your mind wanders, or you feel pulled in 10 directions, pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my attention? If not, let it go. Your attention is sacred. And what you give it to grows. You can't control the noise of the world, but you can choose which frequencies you tune into. And that single choice can change everything. Because the truth is, focus isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more present in what you already do. It's about giving your energy to fewer things, but giving them completely. When you live that way, life slows down, peace returns, clarity deepens, and you finally realize the power to shape your world was never in how much you could do, but in how deeply you could focus. Chapter 7. Emotional Discipline, Mastering the Storm. Within, there's a storm that lives inside every one of us. A storm of emotions: anger, fear, pride, jealousy, love, hope, doubt. It's what makes us human, but it's also what breaks us when we don't learn to control it. Self-control isn't just about resisting temptation or sticking to discipline. It's about emotional mastery, learning how to steer your feelings before they steer you, because your emotions are powerful servants, but they're terrible masters. You've felt it before, the rush of anger that makes you say something you regret, the weight of fear that keeps you from taking that next step, the sting of jealousy when someone else wins, and the quiet ache of insecurity that whispers, "You're not enough." These emotions don't define you, they test you, and how you respond to them defines everything else. When you master your emotions, you don't become cold or detached, you become centered, grounded, unshakable. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop being at the mercy of every feeling that passes through your body. You begin to lead your emotions instead of letting them lead you. Most people think emotional control means suppression, holding everything in until it bursts. That's not mastery, that's pressure building without release. Real control is awareness. It's the ability to recognize a feeling as it arises, anger, anxiety, sadness, and name it without judgment. To say, this is anger, this is fear, this is pride, because the moment you name it, you create distance from it. You stop being the emotion and start observing it. Awareness is power. It turns chaos into clarity, and clarity gives you choice. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't let your feelings dictate your actions without permission. You can feel anger without shouting. You can feel fear without freezing. You can feel sadness without sinking. You can feel envy and still celebrate others. That's strength, not pretending to be unbothered, but choosing peace when chaos invites you in. Every great leader, every great thinker, every great creator throughout history had one thing in common. They learned how to govern their emotions in the face of adversity. Because when storms hit, and they always do, emotional control is the anchor that keeps your ship from capsizing. Think of a soldier in battle. He feels fear, he feels uncertainty. But he doesn't let those feelings dictate his movements. He acknowledges them, channels them, and acts anyway. That's discipline in its purest form, courage in the face of emotion. Now think about your own life. How many decisions have you made out of emotion, and later wished you hadn't? How many words have you spoken that burned bridges, not because they were true, but because they were fueled by hurt? How many times did you give up too soon, not because you lacked ability, but because your emotions convinced you it wasn't worth it? If you start tracking those moments, you'll see a pattern. Emotion rises, clarity fades, action follows. And when clarity fades, mistakes are made. That's why emotional discipline begins with pause. The space between feeling and reaction is where your power lives. Pause, breathe, assess. You can't stop emotions from showing up, but you can decide how long they stay and what they make you do. When someone insults you, pause. When things fall apart, pause. When you feel tempted to quit, pause. That single breath between emotion and action can change the entire story. The ancient Stoics understood this. They taught that no event is inherently good or bad. It's your judgment that makes it so. That means every emotion you feel is an interpretation, not a command. You don't have to obey your anger. You don't have to surrender to fear. You don't have to drown in sadness. You can feel them, understand them, and choose differently. Because freedom doesn't come from avoiding pain, it comes from mastering your response to it. But mastery requires practice. It's not built in silence, it's forged in chaos. You learn control by facing discomfort, not by avoiding it. You become emotionally disciplined by putting yourself in situations that test your patience, your humility, your pride. You learn to be still in storms, not when the sky is clear. So train your emotions like you train your muscles, expose them to resistance. When you're angry, practice calm. When you're anxious, practice trust. When you're jealous, practice gratitude. When you're hurt, practice forgiveness. Every time you do, you grow stronger. And over time, the storm inside you begins to change. Not because it disappears, but because you've learned how to sail through it. There's a quiet confidence that comes with this kind of mastery. You stop chasing validation because your worth no longer depends on others. You stop reacting to criticism because you know your truth. You stop trying to win every argument because you understand peace is worth more than being right. You begin to lead your life from a place of grounded awareness, and people feel it. Your presence becomes calmer, your voice becomes steadier, your decisions become wiser, because emotional discipline is the bridge between chaos and clarity. It's what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who rise through it. The world will always test you, through people, through failure, through loss. But those tests aren't meant to destroy you. They're designed to reveal whether your emotions serve you or sabotage you. Remember, emotions are temporary visitors. Let them come, let them go, but never let them take the keys to your mind. Self-control is not a prison. It's liberation. It doesn't limit you. It frees you from being ruled by impulses that don't serve your highest self. It gives you the power to decide your reaction, your mood, your energy. And when you can control your emotions, no one can control you. That's when real freedom begins. That's when true power reveals itself. The kind of power that can stay calm in chaos, patient in anger, and hopeful in despair. Because the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest or the toughest. It's the one who can remain composed when everything else is falling apart. And if you can master that, you've already won the war within. Chapter 8. The Habit Loop, Building Unbreakable Self-Discipline. Discipline doesn't begin in the moment of decision. It begins in the quiet patterns you repeat every day. Long before you're faced with temptation, your habits have already decided how you'll respond. We like to think we act out of willpower, that every time we resist something, it's strength that saves us. But the truth is, willpower is temporary, habits are eternal. If your habits are weak, your discipline will crumble when pressure hits. If your habits are strong, your discipline becomes automatic. Effortless, even graceful. This is what the ancients understood long before we did. They trained not just the body, but the pattern of the mind. Because repetition carves identity, and identity dictates destiny. Everything you do, from how you wake up, to how you respond to failure, to how you think about yourself, is part of a loop. A loop that shapes your reality without you even realizing it. The habit loop has three parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. A cue triggers the behavior. The routine is the action you take, and the reward is what your brain craves. The feeling, the satisfaction, the relief. Let's say every time you feel stressed, you reach for your phone. That's a cue, stress. The routine, scrolling. The reward, distraction. Over time, your brain learns stress equals phone equals relief. The loop is complete, and before you know it, your reaction becomes automatic. You don't even think. You just reach. Now imagine replacing that loop. Stress equals deep breath equals calm. Boredom equals read a page equals growth. Doubt equals take action equals confidence. That's discipline. Not through force, but through reprogramming. See, the goal of self-discipline isn't to fight your impulses forever. It's to design a life where your impulses serve your goals. Because when your habits align with your values, discipline stops being a battle. It becomes your nature. But changing habits is hard because the brain loves what's familiar. It clings to routine like a child clutching a blanket. And every time you try to change, it resists. Not because it wants to sabotage you, but because it's wired to protect you from the unknown. That's why discipline isn't just about doing the hard thing. It's about doing it long enough for it to become the normal thing. Because what's hard today will feel natural tomorrow, and what's natural tomorrow will build your future. Every habit you build is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. When you wake up early, you're casting a vote for focus. When you choose water over soda, you're voting for health. When you speak kindly instead of reacting, you're voting for peace. Each action, small, invisible, ordinary, compounds into identity. And identity is what drives consistency. Because when you stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and start saying, "I am a disciplined person," everything changes. Your habits stop being chores and start becoming expressions of who you are. But here's the catch. You don't need massive change to reshape your habits. You need consistency. One small win, repeated every day, beats one big push that fades by tomorrow. Start with something simple. Make your bed, drink water, journal for 5 minutes, stretch, breathe. Not because these things are magical, but because they teach your mind that you follow through. And once you trust yourself to keep small promises, the bigger ones stop feeling impossible. Self-trust. That's the core of discipline. You can't build it overnight. You earn it, brick by brick, habit by habit. Most people fail not because they lack potential, but because they break promises to themselves too often. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and don't, your mind remembers. Every time you commit and quit halfway, your confidence weakens. But every time you follow through, even in the smallest way, your inner voice changes. It starts saying, "I can count on me." And that's the foundation of unshakable discipline. Not motivation, not hype, not fear, just trust. Discipline grows in the soil of structure. It thrives in environment. If your surroundings feed distraction, no amount of willpower will save you. If your environment supports your goals, you won't need much effort to win. So design your space to protect your focus. Remove the cues that trigger bad habits. Hide the distractions, schedule your priorities, and make success visible. If your guitar is within reach, you'll play. If your phone is in another room, you'll think. If your journal sits open on your desk, you'll write. It's not magic, it's psychology. Your habits should make good choices easier and bad ones harder. That's how you tilt the odds in your favor. And remember, building habits isn't about perfection. It's about recovery. You will slip. You will miss a day. But the key is not to let one bad day become two. That's how discipline dies. Not in a single failure, but in the decision to give up after failing. Forgive the fall and return to the path. Every comeback strengthens the muscle of resilience. Because self-control isn't tested when things are easy, it's proven when you've stumbled and choose to rise again. Imagine your future self watching you today. Would they thank you for the habits you're building or wish you'd started sooner? That image, that vision, can become your anchor. Every time you feel tired, tempted, or distracted, ask, "What would the person I want to be do right now?" Then do it, even if it's small, even if it's uncomfortable, even if no one sees it. Because habits are built in the shadows, long before success shines a light. Discipline isn't punishment, it's preparation. Each habit is a seed, each choice a drop of water. Over time, they grow roots deep enough to hold you steady through any storm. The person with strong habits doesn't need to fight every battle. The battle's already been won in the routine. You can't predict the future, but you can shape the version of yourself that will meet it. And that version, disciplined, consistent, resilient, will be ready for anything. That's how you win every inner battle before it begins. Not through force, but through alignment. Not through motivation, but through identity. Not through willpower, but through habit. And once you build that kind of discipline, you won't need to chase control anymore. You'll become it. Chapter 9. Delayed gratification, the hidden superpower of the disciplined mind. There's a silent war that happens every day, between what you want now and what you want most. Between instant pleasure and long-term purpose. Between comfort and growth. This war doesn't happen outside of you. It happens within. And every time you choose to delay gratification, you win. Every time you resist the easy path, you strengthen your character. Every time you say "not yet," you sharpen your will. Delayed gratification is not about deprivation. It's about power, the power to choose what matters over what tempts. It's about mastering the impulse that whispers, "You deserve this now," and answering it with wisdom that says, "I deserve better later." The world today is built on instant everything. Instant food, instant news, instant validation. We are wired to crave quick results, fast rewards, and immediate comfort. But the irony is, the more we chase instant gratification, the emptier we feel. Because real fulfillment takes time, and time demands patience. The difference between people who achieve greatness and those who stay stuck isn't talent, it's their relationship with time. Greatness takes investment. It's choosing the slow, steady climb when shortcuts are calling your name. It's showing up again and again when the reward isn't in sight. Think about it. A tree doesn't bear fruit the day it's planted. It takes seasons, sun, rain, wind, and years of unseen growth underground. That's how strength is built. That's how real success works. But our minds resist this truth. The human brain is wired for survival. It wants dopamine, the feel-good rush of the now. That's why scrolling feels easier than reading. That's why comfort feels better than discipline. That's why we break promises to ourselves, not because we're weak, but because our biology tricks us into believing that immediate pleasure equals safety. The secret to delayed gratification is rewiring your brain's reward system. You have to learn to find satisfaction in the process, not just the outcome. To fall in love with effort, not applause. To enjoy the discipline, not just the result. That's how high performers separate themselves. They've learned to crave the work. They train their minds to associate the struggle with pride. Each rep in the gym, each late night of study, each sacrifice of comfort, it becomes fuel, not punishment, because they understand something simple but profound. Pain now is easier than regret later. Delayed gratification is the currency of every dream. You pay with patience and you're rewarded with growth. But the transaction isn't immediate, it's emotional. You must learn to sit in the discomfort of not having what you want yet. That word, yet, is powerful. It turns frustration into faith. It reminds you that just because you don't have it now doesn't mean you never will. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't punishment, it's preparation. When you delay gratification, you aren't denying yourself happiness. You're redefining it. You're saying, my joy isn't cheap. You're saying, my peace isn't for sale. You're saying, I refuse to trade a lifetime of fulfillment for a moment of pleasure. But make no mistake, it's hard. You'll have moments when quitting feels easier, when giving in feels justified, when your progress feels invisible. That's when most people surrender, because they mistake delay for denial. They can't see that patience isn't punishment, it's power under control. Every great achievement in history was born from people who understood this. Inventors, artists, leaders, they worked for years in obscurity. They faced failure, rejection, doubt, and still kept going. Why? Because they saw the long game. They believed that effort today would build tomorrow. You see, the reward for discipline isn't just success, it's transformation. When you delay gratification, you're not just building results, you're building resilience. You're training yourself to handle life's pressures with grace. You're developing the patience to grow roots before reaching for the sky. Let's be honest, the short term will always be seductive. Comfort whispers promises that are easy to believe. You can rest now. You've done enough. You can start again later. But comfort lies. It steals your momentum and disguises it as rest. And every time you choose it, you drift further from who you could become. You can't win the inner war if you keep giving in to temporary feelings. Because discipline doesn't always feel good, but it always leaves you better. Pleasure fades, growth stays. Think of an athlete training before dawn while the world sleeps. Think of an artist painting in silence, unseen and unpraised. Think of an entrepreneur grinding through failure after failure. They all have one thing in common. They've learned to delay gratification. They've learned to push through the boring, the painful, the unseen, because they trust the process more than the pleasure. And that trust is everything. It's what allows you to stay calm when results are slow. It's what gives you peace when success takes longer than you hoped. It's what keeps you moving when motivation disappears. Every time you delay gratification, you are proving to yourself that you are stronger than impulse. You're building a quiet, unshakable confidence. Because if you can master your desires, nothing outside of you can control you. That's the ultimate power, to want something deeply but to choose patience anyway. To know that time is on your side because you are moving with purpose, not emotion. Don't rush the season you're in. Some fruits are ruined by being picked too early. Let your growth ripen. Let your discipline deepen. The world rewards those who can wait without losing faith. When you build that kind of patience, you stop chasing validation and start cultivating value. You stop asking, when will it happen, and start saying, I'm becoming the person who makes it happen. That shift changes everything. It turns waiting into working. It turns frustration into focus. It turns time into an ally instead of an enemy. So the next time you're tempted by the shortcut, by the quick win, by the easy escape, pause. Ask yourself, is this feeding my future or just my feelings? If it's only feeding the now, walk away. If it builds the later, lean in. Because in the end, success isn't about how fast you move. It's about how long you can keep moving without losing heart. Delayed gratification is the invisible superpower that separates dreamers from doers, talkers from builders, and amateurs from masters. It's the quiet art of saying, I can wait because what's coming is worth it. And when you truly believe that, when you can endure the hunger, the silence, the wait, that's when everything starts to shift. Because life always rewards the disciplined, not the distracted. And when you finally receive what you worked for, it won't just feel good, it'll feel earned. And nothing tastes sweeter than that.